Imagine booking a trip to Las Vegas with all the excitement of its legendary past-cheap buffets, free parking, and neon nights that promised adventure at every corner. But when you land in 2025, the dream feels broken. Instead of bargains, you're hit with $50 resort fees, $26 cocktails, and casino floors that feel emptier than ever. Dealers whisper about missing regulars. Bartenders say tips have dried up, and longtime visitors admit the city no longer feels welcoming. Once celebrated as the world's playground, Vegas now feels like a business model gone wrong, a place where charm was traded for spreadsheets. The question is, how did the magic vanish so quickly, and why do even loyal fans say it isn't worth the trip anymore? The answers tell a story of decline you need to hear. Las Vegas didn't collapse overnight, it unraveled piece by piece. In 2019, the city was buzzing with 42.5 million visitors, cheap steak dinners, and hotel rooms that felt like bargains. It was chaotic, yes, but it was the kind of chaos people love to be part of. Fast forward to 2025, and that same trip feels like stepping into a different world. Hotel rates that once hovered around $120 now push past $200 before taxes, and resort fees quietly tack on another $40 to $55 each night. Add in 26 cocktails and $40 bagel and coffee combos, and what used to be a middle-class escape now feels like Manhattan prices with slot machines attached. Even workers admit the spirit is fading. Dealers talk about empty chairs, bartenders notice tips drying up, and longtime visitors confess the Strip no longer feels welcoming. Behind the neon, the city has grown colder, more corporate, and less forgiving. And that shift is at the heart of why Las Vegas is losing its magic. And this shift is only the surface. The deeper reasons behind Vegas's decline tell an even more sobering story. Reason number 5 might feel like something too far in the past to still matter, but its shadow stretches across everything Las Vegas is today. The pandemic didn't just pause, the Strip had cracked its foundation, and the aftershocks have shaped every decision, every price hike, and every empty chair you see in 2025. In March 2020, Las Vegas did the unimaginable. It shut down. The Strip went silent, its neon lights flicked off, and casino doors were locked for the first time in history. Overnight, nearly 30% of the workforce, tens of thousands of dealers, bartenders, housekeepers, and performers were left without jobs. More than 23 million visitors vanished compared to the year before, and the city's proud identity as the world's playground collapsed into something closer to a ghost town. Locals who had built their lives around tourism suddenly faced food bank lines and eviction notices, and the social fabric of Vegas tore in ways that statistics barely capture. The reopening was supposed to be a rebirth, but instead it revealed the damage had already sunk deep. Regular middle-class visitors, the lifeblood of old Vegas, had discovered alternatives. They drove to Laughlin, Reno, or tribal casinos across the U.S. Others simply stayed closer to home. The Strip tried to lure them back with dirt-cheap room rates, sometimes as low as $40 a night, but that gamble backfired. Instead of loyal families and steady gamblers, the city drew in rowdier crowds looking for a bargain weekend. By 2021, violence on the Strip spiked more than 20%, with viral videos of brawls, robberies, and police crackdowns flooding social media. Suddenly, Las Vegas wasn't just expensive, it was unsafe, and that reputation drove even more regulars away. Workers felt the change most of all. Dealers whispered about empty chairs at blackjack tables that once buzzed all night. Bartenders noticed tips shrinking as the crowd shifted from high-rolling tourists to penny pinchers. Hotel staff found themselves doing more work for less pay as corporate owners cut benefits while raising fees. For them, the reopening wasn't a return to normal. It was the start of a harsher reality where hospitality felt mechanical, stripped of warmth, and burdened by stress. By 2025, the numbers tell a story of a city that never fully recovered. Visitor counts remain below 2019 levels, even as global travel has surged elsewhere. Operating costs keep climbing, forcing casinos to squeeze guests harder with hidden charges and watered-down perks. The very things that once made Vegas special cheap luxuries, a sense of being spoiled even if you weren't rich, have been eroded. Instead, the Strip feels fragile, its energy dulled, its reputation damaged. Families who once saw Vegas as a rite of passage now talk about it with disappointment, calling it hollow, corporate, and cold. The truth is, the pandemic was more than a temporary shutdown, it was a turning point. It revealed how dependent Vegas had become on a single fragile industry, how quickly loyalty could evaporate, and how easily the magic could be lost. Every stumble since then, whether it's higher resort fees, declining service, or rowdier crowds, traces back to that fracture in 2020. The lights are back on, but the glow is dimmer, and the soul of the city hasn't come back with them. That's why, even in 2025, the aftershocks of the pandemic remain the first and most important reason Las Vegas no longer feels like the world's playground. Reason number 4 takes us into the chaotic years right after the shutdown, when Las Vegas tried desperately to lure people back. With millions of visitors gone and hotel towers standing half-empty, executives slashed room rates to levels not seen in decades, sometimes as low as $40 a night on the Strip. At first glance, it seemed like a smart move. Cheap rooms had always been the secret weapon that made Vegas irresistible. But this time, the gamble went terribly wrong. Instead of attracting loyal middle-class gamblers and families who used to come for buffets and shows, Vegas pulled in a very different crowd. Social media hyped the low prices and party groups flooded in, looking not for blackjack or fine dining but for a wild bargain weekend. The shift was immediate. Security reports documented more fights, more vandalism, and a sharp rise in police calls. In 2021 alone, violent incidents on the Strip jumped more than 20%, a shocking reversal for a destination once branded as fun but safe. For workers, the change was obvious. Dealers noticed empty high-limit tables while the $5 and $10 machines were crowded with rowdy players drinking more than they gambled. Bartenders complained tips had dropped as customers bought fewer drinks and stretched every dollar. Hotel staff found themselves cleaning up trashed rooms left by partiers who treated discount stays like frat houses. The aura of Vegas, as glamorous, even when cheap, was gone, replaced by a rougher energy that unsettled both employees and longtime guests. Families in particular stopped coming. Parents who once brought teenagers for shows or couples who planned romantic getaways looked at the headlines and thought twice. Viral videos of brawls on Las Vegas Boulevard, police in riot gear outside casinos, and hotel lobbies filled with chaos sent a chilling message. Vegas had traded class for crowds. Instead of being a playground where anyone could feel special, it felt more like a bargain bin party city spiraling out of control. By 2025, the damage still lingers. The Strip has raised rates again, but the reputational scar remains. Loyal visitors remember those chaotic years and hesitate to return, while new travelers wonder if the city is still worth the hassle. Ironically, in trying to save itself with cheap rooms, Vegas may have permanently changed the type of visitor it attracts. Once a place where families, honeymooners, and retirees all felt at home, the city now struggles to shake off the image of being rowdy, unsafe, and unstable. And that's why this reason is so damaging. It wasn't just about temporary crowds, it was about eroding trust. When the promise of a glamorous escape was replaced with scenes of fights, sirens, and bargain hunters gone wild, something deeper broke. The Strip could turn the lights back on, raise the prices again, and polish the casinos, but the memory of chaos lingers. For many, the Vegas they loved felt like it disappeared forever during those years of cheap rooms and rowdy crowds. Reason number 3 digs into a shift that changed not just the Strip's vibe, but its very DNA: the takeover by Wall Street. For decades, Las Vegas was run by casino moguls and colorful personalities names like Steve Wynn or the Fertitta brothers, people who, for better or worse, lived and died by the city. But starting in the late 2010s, that power base shifted. Mega corporations like MGM Resorts and Caesars sold their land and properties to giant real estate trusts and investment firms. The Strip's new landlords weren't showmen. They were accountants, and their only loyalty was to the quarterly earnings report. On paper, the deals looked brilliant. MGM sold its iconic properties, Bellagio, MGM Grand, Mandalay Bay, to firms like Blackstone for billions, then leased them back. Caesars did the same with Harrah's and Planet Hollywood. To investors, it was efficient asset management. To visitors, it was the beginning of death by 1,000 cuts. Because when Wall Street took the reins, the focus shifted from hospitality to extraction. Every square foot of the Strip became a line item, every guest a revenue stream to be maximized. The impact was immediate. Free parking, once a point of pride, disappeared. Resort fees, already hated, crept higher, reaching $40 to $55 a night. Early check-in. $30. Minibar sensors that auto-charged if you so much as picked up a bottle of water. Standard practice. The philosophy was simple. The experience didn't need to feel magical, it just needed to monetize. And in boardrooms thousands of miles from Nevada, investors nodded as the balance sheets fattened. Workers noticed the difference too. Old Vegas bosses cared sometimes brutally about loyalty, service, and flair. Wall Street landlords cared about occupancy rates and margins. Dealers felt pressured to push side bets. Bartenders were told to cut pour sizes. Housekeepers found staffing slashed, each cleaning more rooms for less pay. The very soul of Vegas hospitality, making ordinary people feel extraordinary, was quietly drained away in favor of efficiency. Visitors felt it instantly. Longtime gamblers who remembered getting comped buffets and free drinks suddenly found themselves nickel and dimed at every turn. A place that once made middle-class tourists feel like high rollers now treated them like faceless entries in a spreadsheet. TripAdvisor reviews told the story. More than 60% of negative comments about Strip hotels cited fees, hidden charges, and declining service. The city that once prided itself on value was now infamous for squeezing its guests dry. By 2025, the takeover feels complete. Nearly every major Strip property is owned not by a casino operator, but by a real estate trust or hedge fund. Decisions about pricing, staffing, and service are made not in smoky backrooms in Vegas, but in sterile conference calls in New York and Chicago. The Strip has become less about the magic of escape and more about the machinery of profit. And that is why the Wall Street takeover is so corrosive. It didn't just change the numbers, it changed the soul. Vegas was once run by risk-takers who believed in spectacle, in building volcano fountains and pirate shows because it thrilled the crowd. Now, it's run by firms that believe in quarterly returns and raising resort fees because they can. The result is a city that looks the same on the surface but feels hollow inside. A place where every smile is measured, every perk is priced, and every guest is just another number to exploit. Reason number 2 hits where travelers feel it most: the wallet. Las Vegas once built its empire on bargains that made visitors feel rich without spending much. A $5 steak dinner, a $1 shrimp cocktail, $99 hotel rooms on the Strip. These weren't just deals, they were the marketing hook that kept middle-class families coming back year after year. But by 2025, that promise has been shredded, replaced with relentless price hikes that make the city feel less like an escape and more like a shakedown. Start with food and drinks. The days of cheap buffets are long gone. A basic breakfast bagel and coffee can run $40. Cocktails average $26, and many are poured lighter than ever. Steak dinners, once famous for being affordable, now climb past $65 a plate. For a family of 4, eating out on the Strip can feel like taking out a mortgage. The psychology of the city has flipped. Where once you felt spoiled by how far your money stretched, now you feel punished at every meal. Hotels tell the same story. Rooms that averaged $120 a night in 2019 now push well above $200 before taxes, and that's before you even factor in resort fees, which tack on an extra $40 to $55 a night. Parking, once proudly free across the Strip, now costs $25 a day. Early check-in, that'll be $30. Wi-Fi that should be standard, often hidden inside amenity charges. Every part of the stay has been carved into a separate line item, and guests are left wondering how a $150 booking spiraled into a $350 bill. Travelers notice, and the backlash is loud. On TripAdvisor and Reddit, more than 60% of negative reviews for Strip hotels in recent years mention price hikes, hidden fees, or declining value. Some longtime fans say they feel tricked, others robbed. The language has shifted from excitement to resentment, and once trust is broken, it's hard to win back. Workers feel it too. Bartenders confess that tips are shrinking as customers balk at $26 drinks. Dealers say guests arrive already frustrated, less willing to gamble freely because so much of their budget has been eaten before they reach the tables. Housekeepers overhear families venting about fees, muttering that Vegas isn't worth it anymore. When both guests and employees feel squeezed, the atmosphere of fun that defined Sin City starts to wither. By 2025, what used to be a weekend getaway for $500 now creeps toward $1,000 or more. The magic of Vegas wasn't just the lights or the shows, it was the illusion that anyone, no matter their income, could taste the good life. That illusion dies the moment you realize you're paying $26 for water and $55 for a mandatory resort fee. Instead of leaving with stories of jackpots and shows, visitors leave with stories of sticker shock. And that is why the relentless price hikes are so destructive. They break the unspoken contract Vegas once had with its audience. The city promised to let you play big while spending small. Now it asks you to spend big and still leaves you feeling small. That betrayal cuts deeper than any recession or bad luck at the tables because it turns joy into resentment. For many, it's the moment they decide to walk away, not just from the casino, but from Las Vegas itself. The number one reason people say Las Vegas isn't worth it anymore comes down to a feeling everyone hates: being tricked. Hidden fees are everywhere on the Strip, and by 2025, they become so common that visitors joke you get charged just for breathing casino air. But behind the humor is real frustration, because these fees don't just raise the price, they erode trust, turning excitement into resentment. It starts with resort fees, the most infamous of them all. Once unheard of in Vegas, they now add $40 to $55 a night, often doubling the advertised room price. Imagine booking a weekend for $200 only to see the bill balloon past $350 with fees and taxes. For many travelers, that's not just expensive, it feels like a bait and switch. And the resort fee is only the beginning. Want to check in early? That's $30. Need to park your car? $25 a day? Use the minibar? Sensors charge you automatically even if you don't drink, sometimes just for moving the bottle. Wi-Fi that should be free? Rolled into a mandatory amenity fee. Suddenly, every step of your stay feels like walking through a minefield of small charges. The damage goes beyond wallets. On forums like Reddit and review sites like TripAdvisor, negative comments pile up. Over 60% of bad reviews for Strip hotels mention hidden fees or misleading pricing. Words like cheated, nickel and dimed, and never again appear again and again. For a city that once prided itself on making guests feel like winners, this new reputation cuts deep. Nobody feels like a high roller when they're arguing at the front desk over charges they didn't expect. Workers feel the backlash too. Front desk clerks deal with angry check-ins. Housekeepers find guests leaving without tipping, frustrated by bloated bills. Dealers notice players arriving at the tables already sour, less willing to gamble freely. The entire atmosphere of Vegas, the buzz, the joy, the illusion that anything is possible, gets poisoned by resentment before the fun even begins. By 2025, hidden fees have become so normalized that many first-time visitors leave saying they'll never return. Families compare the experience to budget airlines that charge for every bag, every snack, every ounce of comfort. Except here, the budget airline costs nearly $1,000 for a weekend. The contrast to Old Vegas is striking. In the 1990s, guests raved about $5 steak dinners and free parking. Today, they warn friends about $40 breakfasts and $50 resort charges that don't feel like resorts at all. And that is why hidden fees take the top spot on this list. They don't just hurt the wallet, they break the bond of trust. Las Vegas used to promise that no matter who you were, you could come here, feel special, and live large for a little while. Now it feels like the city is constantly reaching into your pocket, charging for things that should have been part of the deal. Once trust is gone, the magic is gone, and without magic, Las Vegas is just another overpriced stop in the desert. For many, the fees are the last straw, the moment they decide the world's playground isn't worth playing in anymore. When you line up these 5 reasons together, a clear picture emerges. Las Vegas didn't just stumble, it systematically dismantled the very formula that made it irresistible. The pandemic was the first crack, shutting down the Strip and scattering loyal visitors. Cheap rooms then invited chaos, replacing steady families with rowdy party crowds. Wall Street's takeover shifted priorities from spectacle to spreadsheets, turning every guest into a revenue stream. Relentless price hikes punished the middle class, stripping away the illusion of affordable luxury. and hidden fees broke the final bond of trust, leaving travelers feeling cheated rather than cherished. What ties all of this together is a loss of balance. Old Vegas thrived on a simple contract. The odds at the tables might not be in your favor, but everywhere else, you felt like a winner. Affordable meals, free perks, and genuine service created the illusion that anyone could live large, even for a weekend. By 2025, that balance is gone. Every touchpoint from booking a room to ordering a drink reminds guests that profit now comes first, experience second. The deeper trend is unmistakable. Travelers are turning away from manufactured illusions and seeking authenticity. They crave destinations that deliver fairness, community, and memories that feel real. That's why alternatives like Laughlin, Reno, Biloxi, or even Lake Tahoe are gaining traction. Vegas may still glitter, but glitter without substance quickly dulls. The true jackpot of the future will belong to places that understand hospitality isn't about fees or margins, it's about trust. And once trust is gone, no amount of neon can light the way back. For some, it's a city that's lost its soul. For others, it's simply too expensive to love anymore. The real question is, where do you stand? Have you walked the Strip recently and felt the change? Or do you believe Sin City can still reinvent itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if this story gave you something to think about, hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Because in the end, Vegas isn't just about what's on the casino floor, it's about what you, the traveler, choose to believe.